This is about my biological father, and I was thinking this particular situation. God knows if he's still alive. I'm scared to think what they did to him. I'm scared to think how they tormented him. I'm so scared that they. I'm scared that they. I'm scared that they. What they did to him and how they tortured him. I know they tortured him, and they're gonna cover it up because they know I'm gonna defend him. They know I'm gonna say who did this to you. I know it was Ken Cooper in the police department. I know it was all these gay community members in the exchange and everything that was going on. And there's a lot of bad things they could pin against him. I just can't imagine the suffering that he went through. I know that it was pretty bad. I know it had to have been pretty bad, for sure. But, I was thinking, did he know about his daughter dying? Because she didn't die until many years after. She was somewhere around the age of about 14 years old, when this happened. She was about 14, or maybe even earliest, right before she turned 15. And it's hard for me to understand, and it's hard for me to understand the circumstances, because how it all got picked away and mutilated, and the profitable gains for a president and for the police department and the white supremacy and all the racial things that go into this, because it is my direct sister. But Mikayla, it's probably important for you to know this as well, is that if there's so much bad that's going to come from this circumstances and debates, and it is too late, because they're going to, the idea of it is, you got to understand how I'm living in my life. I'm not being told and confirmed that's my sister. You know how weird it is that someone just tells you they live 5-6 years next door to you and you don't even know that's your sister? You don't have any idea. I didn't know, Mikayla, you were my sister. But what's going to happen is that I've had a lot of people do this already, and there was a church, Mormon church, church-going people. They were blaming my biological father, saying that he knew about his daughter dying, or he knew about his daughter that lived there, and he didn't do anything about it, and he was a bastard son of a bitch. That's what they were insinuating toward me. And they trained me this way. And then they beat me with electronic devices to then I follow the emotions, repeatedly living that in emotions and understanding that belief that he was a piece of shit, knew his daughter was over there, and he never did anything about it. He didn't care. So they are very detailed about this. But the idea of it is that he didn't know. Someone may have told him afterwards, but the thing is that when I went to church, and I talked about this, so when I saw Mikayla at Albertsons, and I saw Mikayla with her mother, they knew about that. They knew that Mikayla's mother was trying to reach out to my mom. I mean, they spoke over the phone, but I don't know what those circumstances were. Did her mom know about that? She had, that little girl, that woman had to have known that little girl lived over there. That was Mikayla's sister, and she died. Mikayla's mother had to have known, because she's associated with my biological father. She had to have known. So I think it's important for me to say something about this, that that my biological father, he's going to be shunned down. And I want to, I don't know. I guess I'll find out when I find out, if I ever do, but I'm trying not to think about it. There's one thing I want to add to this, and I want to say, when my biological father, now I'm not entirely sure if this was the entire situation, but when he came into the house, and he showed up for like a week, and I never saw him again. And I talked about he huckled some cries or some emotions like that was his daughter, but he couldn't do anything. I guess he was in a bad situation. and she had died. He said my mother told that she didn't make it. She had brain damage. I can tell you this. I believe my sister was murdered. I believe, and I feel very confident. I could be totally wrong about this, and I'm not trying to make this as a joke. I think that someone poisoned my mother, and the baby ended up being defected. That's what I believe happened. That's what I honestly believe. There's no way that my mother can have two sets of identical twins, 4 kids, me, Frankie, and that child be that deformed. That was not an accident. Someone told me something about my mother's, or someone insinuated, and it made me think, did my mother used to say, because they asked my mother, they asked my mother, Miss Susanna, before you were pregnant with that little girl, did your stomach hurt a lot? Were you very sick? Did you ever feel like you drank something or ate something that someone did something to you? Bingo. Because I talked about that I had been poisoned along with my mother on more than one occasion by 2 different people. One of it was also from another adult when I was raped. I was about 5 years old. So I think it's important for me to say this and make this video. No one's ever going to know. If my mother said that her stomach was hurting really bad and that she was feeling very nauseous and sick while she was pregnant, someone murdered that baby. Who do I think it was? I don't think it was Miguel or Diana by that time, because I don't think my mother was pregnant when she showed up. What I think happened, I think it was some relative, distant relative, that's the only way that my mother would have been in contact with someone. And I talked about Licha doing this with some other guy. I think it was someone. I believe it was someone, my mother, at a house, because you don't understand how people persecuted my mother, because they believed she was only after my dad's money. And my mother was a bitch, and she was nothing but a bitch and a whore to all these other people, and that's how they treated her. And that's how they behaved. That you better do what I tell you to do, otherwise you know what's going to happen. You're going to suffer. Behave like the little girl that we're training you to be, and you're going to do what we tell you to do. And just like Barack Obama gives you direct orders to me and my mother and says, no, that's what I told you, and then you love Sarah and Ken, and then Cooper family gets white supremacy treatment. But I get scummed along with my mother. He's running a president in political power. So, but like I said, just like all the people that have been ordered against me were doing to my mother. They were doing this to my mother. God knows what they did to my mother behind closed doors. I never saw. I mean, if my mother jumped over a fence, across the border, landed in a cactus pit, and was prostituting at 14 years old to try to survive, and she was being raped, what do you think happened to people when she got here? How much bad do you think that she never talked about? She didn't want to tell me about because she said, I talked about this when I was at a work environment at the casino over at Golden Entertainment, where my mother wouldn't tell me that she was prostituting. And I asked her very nicely. I wasn't pissed off. I was just like, oh, so what did you do, when you ran away from home when you were 12, or when you were 13 when you ran away from home? How did you get money? Did you work like at a store or something, or at a convenience store? Did you work somewhere to earn some money? And she told me. I was like, how did you get money? And she was like, no, nada, más tenía dinero. And there were other people that were prostituting her, raping her for all those years, and all the way until she got here. Then it happened when she got here, because my mother got arrested for prostitution. Frankie told me this, and my dad told me this. And they didn't tell me until I was in my late teen, or before my dad's suicide, or right after my dad's suicide, that Frankie was always telling me, he's like, watch after mom, because my mother had been arrested for prostitution when she first got to the U.S., and she was prostituting at that young of an age. That's what was happening to survive. That's Barack Obama and how he fucked my mother. And he's going to keep doing it with his fucking wife and his transgender fucking kids. And he's going to keep doing it. And he did successfully, with a smile and laughter, and to tell everybody he's all about love and Jesus Christ. That's poison. But I wanted to say this, it's important, because I get terrified to just think like, what did my mom went through? Like, what are the things that she went through that she didn't want to say to anybody? Because if she's telling me this stuff, and then she may have she didn't even want to. She told my dad this stuff. She didn't even tell Frankie, because Frankie find out this stuff because my dad is the one that told him. My mom never told Frankie any of this shit. It was my dad that did. You know, it was Raymond Palomo. That's how Frankie found out. And that's how he was getting this information, because my dad was getting mad at my mom and calling her a bitch. And then in order to get Frankie on my dad's side, my dad would tell him like secrets about my mother. And so then he kind of sort of visually hate my mother here and there. But he was Frankie would always tell me like, yeah, like mom, like, and you don't understand, mom, like you know, mom was prostituting. She, you know, it's like, yeah, man. It's like, but you got to understand, there's the horrors of what happened. She is never going to be the same way that Frankie did. The same way that Frankie did. Not the same exact way, but when it comes to sex, when he was being raped, and you know, which he didn't like, and liked it to stop it. But on some of those occasions, he fully went toward it, fully went along with it, just like, this is life. I don't understand anything else. You know, the gay community is here to show you that they're love and bonded, and they're here to support you, and it's okay to do this to you. And they train him to do that. So, I wanted to say this, very crucially important. You know, I just can't believe I missed out on so many years that they wouldn't let me associate with my mother or my brother's twin, or her twins. I don't know anything about them. They built up at their own house and their own family without me. And you know, whatever happened to my mother, even though I do believe twins should be together or triplets, they're not my mother. They weren't there. I'm from her cloth, not theirs. And their personalities are different. They're very closely alike, but they're different. My mother was very loving to me. You know, they say that there's always like an evil twin, or like one will try to be more paramount than the other ones. That's exactly what it is. But my mother would never behave that way. My mother was very loving and caring. So I think it's important for me to say something. And you know, Mikayla, I mean, I'm, you know, because I say this because when I was about 10 years old was whenever we were going to Home Depot, and I was with my mother in the car, and I saw my biological father. And I don't think he saw us, and he could have seen us. I think he did for a moment, but he was driving away, and he was driving like the intersection of Jackson over right behind Home Depot. And I talked about my mother. I was in the car with her, and I said this video before. I was about somewhere around 10 years old, 10 to 11 years old. If I saw him there, if maybe it was him, I don't know if he went to prison, he could time out whether it was him during that time frame or not, when he went to prison or not. But did he know about his daughter still being alive? Because my sister, biological, same sister, his daughter, she didn't die in that house until I was somewhere around 13 years old. 13 to 14 years old, late 13, 14 years old, you know. And, you know, like I said, there was no burial. Y'all have to ask if my mother's okay or not, whoever it was, if my mother got really sick. I know, I want to feel like, I want to say, like she might have said her stomach hurted a lot. Like she was getting a lot of stomach pain. And my mother never said anything like that about any of the other kids. And I say that because, like when she was talking to my biological father, either she grabbed her stomach or she goes, no like eso, and goes like this. So it may have been her way of expressing to say that someone she didn't know that did this poisoned her. And if someone poisoned her, she wouldn't know it. It was. I've seen my mother, because she literally got a soup and tasted the food that I was staying, and she totally panicked when she looked over at Licha and says, "What are you doing to my kid? You're poisoning it." It's like, hey, my stomach hurts. I would look into that, and I say that because it's important. But other than that, I think there's a lot of bad going against my biological father. You have no idea the preparation of what these people did. It's gonna go the way that they did. Mikayla, you understood the empire of people all over. Dana White, so many UFC fight. These sliming motherfuckers, the gay community, because you gotta remember, there's a lot of UFC professional fighters that are gay. And they're not openly gay. There's a lot of their special community, the president, all these people. They'll make fake marriages. I heard Taylor Swift talk about this before. That there's a lot of people with fake marriages and relationships, and how that's what they're all doing. That's what they're all fucking doing. Many of them, majority of them, in fake relationships, because they all want the money, the fame, willing to do anything for it. And it's the gay community. All entertainment is theirs. There's no straight men over there. Maybe one or two, and we just scum to the shit. It's they sell and they control all the women over there, and then women get submitted to those situations and survival techniques. But you know, I would look into it. I would ask whoever the professionals are. Ask my mother if she's still okay and was faking it. I don't know. Ask her and ask people around her if she was getting sick and she was getting a lot of stomach pain, because I feel like I remember seeing expressions like my mother looking over toward that house and being like this, like. So I know that if my mother was willing to put that child there and she's holding her stomach, she may have been like, well, I didn't do it. She doesn't know that she got poisoned and it killed the child and deformed the child. So I think it's important for me to say something. I could never express any much more than as much as a beautiful little angel or beautiful little spirit girl. It was nothing for me, and only for the Cooper family, and only for everyone else. All that is for me, and say that was my sister, any bonding to anything, was just a reservoir, a reservation to cry when we give some sort of burial or tokens to that. That's all that is. It's sad to say that, but President Barack Obama gives the orders. And he will get rid of my life and put it where he wants it.